What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Kratos will die in God of War Ragnarok. Now, this is one of the final theory videos I'll be doing. I still have a few more, but I wanted to hit a big one before we get too close to the game, right? Because there could be spoilers that hit literally any moment, and they could, reveal something that we don't want it to reveal. So I wanted to talk about Kratos specifically, and look, death is not new to Kratos. That's one of the main things people will say when you ever pose the question of, will they kill him off in this game? Well, one of the responses is, well, if they do, what does that actually mean he's gone, right? Because he could always come back, like he has multiple times in the past, whether it be like in the middle of a game, like a setup as the main point of the game, or most recently, you can think of, obviously, right, God of War 3's ending, where they leave it pretty ambiguous, but also you have to think, well, if he literally gets stabbed with a gigantic, very powerful sword, and he still comes back from it, can anything actually kill this guy? And the answer is we really don't know. But, all right, in terms of God of War Ragnarok, is it possible he dies? Yes. Here's the deal. I don't want him to die. And when I say die, I mean go on future God of War adventures without him. Also, technically, God of War, I mean, the name of the game is because of him. So if you have Atreus being the lead of a future game, which, look, I think you could have, and I think you could even do it like Miles Morales for Spider-Man. If we're looking at trying to copy what other Sony studios have done and done rather successfully, I do think something like that makes sense, where if you wanted to kind of, now, like spinning it off, like what Atreus is going to go on his own adventures without Kratos, so where would Kratos be? It's a little messy. It's not like perfect, but I do think you could have games with Atreus. You'd have to call it something else, most likely, right? I mean, it wouldn't be God of War. You could do God of blank, and you could just change the war part. But literally, if we're talking about if there will be future God of War games, Kratos kinda, in my opinion, has to be in it. I'm not opposed to Kratos dying. I really would prefer if he were to die. I mean, if you wanted to do the same thing as God of War 3 and bring him back for future installments, that's fine. There does become a point where killing off the main character so many times with the idea that you can just bring him back and it doesn't really matter, that kind of eventually, and I don't know if it would happen if they did it here, but eventually I feel like that would cheapen the idea of losing the character. I actually was quite shocked with God of War 3. I was like, holy Jesus, I thought this would be the end, but I didn't think you necessarily had to kill him. So I was quite shocked. And then obviously seeing the after credits where, he's gone, it's like, all right, well, they kind of leave the door open. And I could honestly see that, but maybe keeping him alive, but having the door be potentially closed, but also potentially be open. That's kind of how I see the ending of this game going, where they leave this mythology. You could introduce maybe which is the next place they're going to go, but you don't get too far, and by doing that, you leave the door open and closed, either way, well, if you wanted to stop it here, you could, or if you wanted to continue with them, both of them, Atreus and Kratos, in the next game, you could. I just really, it's a selfish thing maybe, but I really don't want Kratos to go away. I think, because you bring him back in 2018, and in a way, in a big way, you reinvent his character. I mean, look, after playing God of War 2018 again recently, like I played it 2-3 weeks ago to get ready, he is still the essence of what Kratos is. I think they did about as good of a job as you could possibly do at keeping him the same character that he was in terms of his core. He really still doesn't care about anybody but himself, and now Atreus, right? So now he's got the father aspect, but he still is him, but you really add so much depth to him that he never had before. And I think they did a really good job with that. And I don't know if you do that to have him be part of 2 games and then you end him. I mean, in some ways, it makes sense. In some ways, you can think, well, he's been around for 20 years, so maybe it's it's enough time has passed where you have to kind of get rid of him to move on to something new, right? I mean, you can make the argument either way. I just look at it as, I don't know if it's because they had decided that they're only going to do these 2 games in the Norse mythology, but I think the idea in my head with, okay, you end it here, you probably make future games, going forward. I just don't think, much like with Uncharted, now Nathan Drake is most likely done, but like with Uncharted never dies. Like, you're gonna make more Uncharted games in the future. I just can't imagine you stop making God of War games. And I do mean literal God of War. And because I do think Kratos is kind of an eternal character that can stay around and be reinvented enough. In fact, again, they just did it, where it keeps things fresh and interesting. So I really don't want him to die. I feel like it would kind of be too soon. And I know, again, that may sound silly considering he's been around for so long. But in this new version of himself, 4 years, 2 games. I mean, again, I can say it's too soon. Some people can say, no, it makes sense to, finish him off in the second game. Whenever talking about this, I tend to think about Joel. And obviously, they're different situations. But the point is, and the reason I bring Joel up, I don't know how killing Kratos would make me feel, and it depends on how they do it. So, I get it. It's ambiguous. I really don't have like a good answer. I understand that. I'm not a fan with how Joel went out. I'm not a fan of many of the story decisions made in The Last of Us Part 2. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people that say they loved it. That's totally cool. But when I think of Kratos, I do think of Joel, where it's like, all right, well, if it's done well, then maybe I'll get over it. In fact, well, you'll have to get over it because they're going to do what they're going to do, and we're just kind of along for the ride. But if they do it wrong, I mean, I'm going to lose a lot of trust in them or faith in them or whatever you want to say. So I don't know. It really comes down to if you're going to kill him. Obviously, it's going to be at the very end. Then the question would also be who kills him, right? Do they go the Atreus route? And that goes back to the whole, the mural at the end of God of War 2018. Some people still don't think that was actually Kratos, though, so we'll see. If Atreus kills him or if Odin actually manages to kill him. I mean, I feel like Atreus would probably be the person to do it, however way it goes, whether Kratos kind of like willingly accepts it or asks for it or whatever. And again, like, those are differences, like, depending on who kills him, why they kill him, how they kill him, those are all going to affect my psyche when I think about this game. Honestly, I lean towards no, he won't die. I really do. I lean towards it. And there's a biasness there because I don't want him to die, but I do think, based off of, 4 years, 2 games, I do think there's a future to be had with both of these characters, not just Atreus. And again, Kratos being kind of this eternal character. Nathan Drake, yes, he kills like 5,000 people per game, but he's supposed to be like an actual guy. He gets older. Things get harder for him to move around. They did that with Sully, right? Like, they made it known, like, as you get older, like, you can't do it anymore. So, like, that needed to eventually end. And while you can continue Uncharted, and again, Uncharted, the words Nathan Drake aren't there. The Last of Us, Joel is not the words The Last of Us, right? You can use that example as well. But God of War, again, if you make future God of War games, you need the God of War. If you made God of blank games with Atreus, that's obviously something different. You don't need Kratos for that. But I just think because of the eternalness and how long God of War has stuck around, because of how long Kratos has stuck around, and being able to bring him back, really whenever you kind of feel like it, I feel like that helps. That helps kind of his invincibility in a way. Again, it's tough. It's a tough tightrope because while I don't want him to die, you don't want it to seem like nothing can ever get him. Because literally, the whole point of this game, or really any of these God of War games, you deal with insane bosses, right? These gigantic, like, larger-than-life kind of fights. There needs to be an element that maybe he'll lose. Maybe he'll lose and he'll die. Obviously, maybe at the end of the game, because you can't really do it in the beginning or middle, but you know what I mean? So there has to be an element where you think he could die, and then he just doesn't. And as long as you keep that going, you can keep it fresh, then I'm all for it. So let me know what you guys think. If you think he'll die, if you think he'll survive. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. If you want to follow or support me anywhere else, all my links are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.